From all indications, there were multiple shooters who fired dozens of shots, perhaps more than 50. Remarkably, all of those bullets missed a baby who was sitting in the car that was targeted.
They had long guns, at least 3 of them, coordinated, masked. Not a drive-by, an ambush. Stop the car, advance, fire, reload, keep firing. 50 shots, give or take, in a residential neighborhood while school kids walk home and elders watch from porches. And when the smoke clears, one woman dead in the passenger seat, her driver shot twice but breathing, and a baby strapped in a car seat, surrounded by shattered glass and empty brass, crying, but untouched. Some call it divine intervention. Others call it luck. I call it a question that Chicago still hasn't answered. Her name was Gabryel Ayers, 26 years old. Born and raised on Chicago's South Side, Auburn, Gresham specifically, the kind of neighborhood where church pews stay full on Sunday and gunfire stays routine on Wednesday. She worked as a hairstylist, had a daughter, 14 months old, the age where they're walking unsteady and saying words that don't quite make sense yet. To her people, she was Gina. The nickname fit, short, direct, memorable. She was also someone who moved through digital spaces the same way she moved through physical ones, unfiltered, visible, engaged, her Facebook page active, her comments frequent. In 2026, this wasn't unusual. Everybody's online. But in certain Chicago circles, being online meant being on display, and being on display meant being accountable for every word typed. The father of her child isn't part of this story. Not in the public record. What we know is that on February 4th, she wasn't with him. She was in a white sedan with a 27-year-old man. His name? Protected. His relationship to Gabryel? Unclear. Police haven't clarified, and he hasn't spoken publicly. What matters is that he was driving. She was in the passenger seat, and her daughter was behind them both, strapped in, secured, innocent of whatever dynamics existed between the adults up front. February in Chicago. Cold. Gray. The kind of afternoon where you keep your coat on in the car because the heater hasn't caught up yet. They were driving through familiar territory. Past St. Sabina Church, where Father Pfleger had spent years preaching against exactly this kind of violence. Past the food pantry on the corner where volunteers were probably packing bags. Routine streets. Routine day. 1:25 p.m. The white sedan approaches 79th and Main. Stop sign ahead. The driver slows. This is the moment, mundane, repeated thousands of times daily across the city, where everything changes. Witnesses later describe figures emerging from between parked cars, from around corners, at least 3. Faces covered, weapons already drawn. No warning, no negotiation, just movement and noise. The first shots shatter the afternoon, not scattered, concentrated. The shooters advance on the vehicle methodically, firing as they move. Windows explode, metal punctures. Inside, Gabryel takes rounds from multiple angles. The driver feels impact in his arm, his buttocks, tries to accelerate, tries to escape, but the car is already compromised. Blood on the seats, glass in the air, and behind them both, the baby, 14 months old, probably screaming by now, though witnesses describe her later as holding a lollipop, crying but physically untouched. 50 bullets, 0 hits on the child. The math defies explanation. The shooters retreat to a red vehicle waiting nearby, but they aren't finished. As the getaway car moves, they continue firing, more rounds into the air toward the disabled sedan, then gone. The entire attack under 60 seconds. The aftermath? Permanent. The white sedan, driver wounded and losing control, crashes into a nearby GMC van. Final stop. Final image. A bullet-riddled car, a dead woman, a bleeding man, and a miracle nobody asked for.
There's a shooting at a car and you know there's a child in the car. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it could be a lot of other people who's lost their life here today.
First responders arrived within minutes. What they found: Gabryel Ayers unconscious in the passenger seat, multiple gunshot wounds, critical. The driver, name withheld, condition serious but stable, shot in the arm and buttocks, conscious enough to speak. And the child. A police officer, unidentified in official reports, carefully unstrapped the 14-month-old from her car seat. She was crying, holding a lollipop, physically untouched. The images would circulate later: an officer cradling a baby who had just become motherless, the yellow crime tape visible behind them, shell casings still being counted on the pavement. 50. That's the number investigators settled on. 50 shell casings scattered across 79th and Main, in a residential neighborhood, in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon. Paramedics rushed Gabryel to Little Company of Mary Hospital. Trauma team waiting, but the damage was too extensive. Multiple rounds to vital areas. Blood loss massive. She was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The driver survived surgery, listed in good condition considering he'd been shot twice and crashed a vehicle. The baby was examined, monitored, released to family. No injuries. Not even glass cuts. Period. Kirk Bell arrived at the scene to learn his goddaughter was gone. He stood behind the yellow tape watching investigators work, counting the evidence markers, trying to process what the evidence already showed. This wasn't random. This was execution. "What's the purpose of shooting at a car when you know there's a child in the car?" he asked reporters gathered there. "It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it could be a lot of other people who lost their life here today." His questions hung in the cold air, the kind of questions that don't have satisfactory answers. The shooters knew the car, knew who was in it, planned the approach, the escape, the continued firing even as they left. The presence of a child, visible, vulnerable, didn't deter them, didn't slow them, didn't matter. Father Michael Pfleger, whose church sits a block from where Gabryel died, walked the scene as darkness fell. He's buried too many young people from this neighborhood, preached at too many funerals, seen too many yellow tapes. They all had long guns, he said, describing what surveillance footage would later confirm. Rifles, not handguns, military-style presence on a residential corner. Somebody needs to be held accountable. He noted the baby specifically. Too young to remember, old enough to grow up knowing. Thank God that baby is so young. They probably won't remember this day. But that baby's going to know that their mother was killed today. That baby could have been killed. And somebody needs to be held accountable. The surveillance footage exists. Multiple angles from nearby buildings. Shows the approach, the masks, the coordination, the red getaway vehicle. What it doesn't show, what matters most, is faces clear enough to identify. The masks worked. The planning worked. The shooters, as of this recording, remain unknown. Chicago police area. 2 detectives launched the homicide investigation immediately. Standard procedure: canvass the neighborhood, collect footage, interview witnesses, trace the weapon sources. But standard procedure hits walls in cases like this. Witnesses saw. Multiple people saw. A man coming home from work saw the shooting, ran toward it, helped the victims, heard the baby crying. Others saw from windows, from porches, from the food pantry where they were hiding in back rooms until the gunfire stopped. Seeing and saying are different things. The code of silence isn't written down. It's understood. You don't testify against shooters in Chicago unless you're prepared for consequences. Most people aren't prepared. Detectives collected cell phone video, the kind recorded by witnesses who want documentation but not involvement. Muted audio in some clips. Visuals clear enough. 3 figures, long guns, the red vehicle, not clear enough for facial recognition. The masks, Ski masks, according to some reports, were effective. The red getaway car became a focus. Alfa Romeo, some reports suggested, searching for license plates, traffic cameras, parking footage, any frame where a face might be visible, a window might be down, a mistake might have been made. Investigations like this depend on mistakes. Shooters who get comfortable, shooters who brag, shooters who trust the wrong person. Phone records were examined. Gabryel's recent calls, texts, social media activity, comment sections filled with people who never met Gabryel debating whether her online presence justified her death. Others argued no post-warrants execution. Both sides missed the point. A child is growing up without a mother, and the people who made that happen are still free. The investigation remains open. The reward remains available. The baby remains, growing older, carrying what she doesn't remember, but will always know. Somebody needs to be held accountable. The question is, who will break first, the silence or the case?